So why is Flow caffeine free? Well, this is kind of a long answer. Like probably many of you, I've always had a love and hate relationship with caffeine. I love the cognitive, the physical impact that it has on me, and I've used it probably in excess at times for decades for both that mental and that physical performance. My understanding of it for years was much like yours. And much like with many things, if something works, people tend to take too much of it because they want it to work better, right? So let me explain to you a little bit about caffeine, but first we need to understand a little bit more about receptors, these things in our brain. We have a whole bunch of them that are responsible for receiving and transducing signals that look after our biological systems. So these are situated in our brain, right? In the case of caffeine, the two we need to concern ourselves with are what we classify as the A1 and the A2A receptors. These are influenced by caffeine as when we ingest it starts entering the brain, and the way it works is it starts competing, blocking an organic compound we call adenosine, which prevents the effects of the A1 and the A2A receptor. Now, the A1 receptor, in the case of what we're talking about, promotes muscle relaxation and sleepiness, kind of the opposite of what you want from caffeine, so therefore when it blocks adenosine, it stops that happening. The A2A receptor, it can interfere with the release of neurotransmitters such as dopamine, which are responsible for improving your mood. So we take in coffee, we block that. As it's absorbed into your system, it gets in the way of adenosine binding with A1 and A2A. Getting in the way of it is the way that caffeine wakes us up. And getting in the way of the A2A receptor helps promote the release of dopamine and glutamate, so it makes us feel good, which is coffee, right? Makes us feel great. Makes us feel energized. Once again, great. The problem being is that the more caffeine we consume, the more we block adenosine, and the more of it we ultimately stockpile, so we get more and more of it. So when we block it, it's still getting produced, and it's still trying to get to the receptor. As caffeine is metabolized, so this disappears, it gets released and it starts to bind to the A1 and A2A receptors. So it promotes muscle relaxation, sleepiness, and interferes with the release of the mood-improving neurotransmitters. So middle of the afternoon, when caffeine's been metabolized, we feel tired, we feel sleepy, and our mood's kind of a bit off. So we reach for more coffee, and that stockpiling begins again. It gets metabolized, and early evening, as we want to hit the gym, go home, be present with our friends and family, we can't. The gym's out, our mood absolutely sucks, and it can all be pointed to back to that second, maybe even third coffee. So why did we choose to make Flow caffeine free? That's the reason why. We have a desire to make you better, to perform better, to be present better, and to make sure that we're physically and cognitively primed for the occasions that we have in our days. Not to patch up the biological indiscrepancies brought about by poor habits. We want to make sure that we prime that afternoon slump without causing ourselves more problems later in the day when it matters the most. It's all about being present and being engaged.